want to say this starting off. As picking up what Scott said, I think that candidates have really missed an opportunity. We're in the early stages of doing this kind of thing, of these broadcasts. Here's why they're missing it. Number one, they don't understand it. Most candidates don't understand just what's involved. They think it's so complicated and they've got to go take courses. It's not that complicated. But number two, they don't realize the value. First of all, few candidates I've come across really keep a detailed email list, have a Twitter feed, have a Facebook page. They put one up for show, but they've, knowing what I know now, when I was in politics before, I'd always want your card. Every time I meet somebody, I take their card and put it into my mailing list, which of course costs stamps and all that kind of thing. Well, today I'd want your email address. And if I were a typical statewide official in Louisiana over a 4-year period, I'd want to put together 30, 40, 50,000 email addresses. Then you could let people know about this concept just via email, via Twitter, by Facebook. Most candidates have not done that yet. So we're on the cutting edge of what I think will be pretty much the norm 4 or 5 years from now.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, what and this is just an open question, but what do you think the reluctance might be? I mean, Jim, you've been involved in politics for quite a while. Did you tell me 27 years? Was that the magic number?
28.
28. Okay.
You can tell with the gray hairs, can't you, Steve?
Well, yeah, mine or yours. But what's the reluctance? I mean, I know that, and Scott, you can certainly answer this too. Politicians want to be perfect. They don't want to have anything that could possibly go wrong with the presentation, with the way they look, the way they sound, and so on. So is this a real detriment, this type of technology, whether it be, say, Blab or Google Hangouts or Meerkat or Periscope, which we'll talk about shortly? Are we pushing the envelope too fast for the politicians to be able to hang on and say, yeah, I'm willing to do it?
Let me give you a general answer on that. Then let Scott get into the more the technology aspects of it while I step aside and get a cup of coffee. Here's what happened. We transited from retail politics, which I just happen to love. That's my foray, being an older guy, I guess. But I love going to parades and fairs and festivals and throwing candy like Mardi Gras and networking and calling all the radio shows and shaking hands. That was the foray of what it was up till about, say, 15 years ago. Then the political consultants all said, hey, it's all TV. If you got money, even in local races, put it on TV and radio. That's all you have to do. And if you have enough money to do it, you don't have to go out and do the retail politics anymore. So that's kind of where it is today. And very few of the officials running this time have picked up on that. Now, David Vitter, because of the technological people he has in Washington, the Republican Party has picked up on these telephone calls where he'll have town meetings. You and I will get these calls and say, hey, it's David Vitter, punch 1, and you can talk to me right now in a town meeting I'm having on such and such a subject. To some degree, Vitter started along that line. But no candidate in Louisiana I've seen have effectively used the technology we're talking about here now. And here's the mistake they're making. Even if you don't get a lot of viewers that watch this kind of thing, the fact that you're sending out emails telling what you're doing and you're talking about it shows you're a little ahead of the game. You're on the edge of technology. And so voters who have never watched you will say, gosh, I like that guy. He's able to put on these very special programs and talk to me over the internet. And so a lot of it makes it very appealing, in my opinion. The problem is that just hasn't gotten across yet, even to the consultants. You see, you don't have consultants out there telling people, look, you got to put this kind of program together. They are putting the little advertisements on Facebook, that kind of thing, but nothing like someone like Scott could sit down and do. And Steve, you guys together could offer a vast range of products for these candidates they're missing out on. I think that's going to change 4 years from now. It's a whole different world. Now, Scott, I didn't want to dominate. I'll throw to you in terms of what the options are right there while I get a quick cup of coffee.
Well, sure. And you'll be able to hear us as we're talking as well. And good points, Jim. I think one of the reasons your question, Stephen, is why aren't politicians using social media? And I think one of the reasons is that they are social media illiterate. They're not using social media in their businesses. They're not using it in their personal, professional lives, and it doesn't occur to them to use social media for the political campaigns. That, coupled with the campaign managers, you might have a point there that they are very cautious. They don't want to lose control. And it's also not what they were trained to do. They know how to go out and do retail or place ads or do brochures and all, direct camps, all of that. It's a brand new skill set. And quite frankly, a lot of the people who are directing the campaigns, in my opinion, just don't have that skill set. It's exactly the same thing that is happening in the real world or the other parts of the sector, where you've got advertising agencies that know little or nothing about how to mount a proper social media campaign. So if there was a reason for that, I think it's just there's an illiteracy out there in terms of the decision makers. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, well, I certainly don't disagree with what you're saying in terms of the literacy. Yeah, I mean, I think that they're really, they don't use the type of tools that I think that they could use to be very effective. I think that part of it is that they have an aversion to anything that they don't know. Secondly is I think they're just overwhelmed. And so I think what needs to happen is that, people slowly but surely wins with using a particular feature and or makes great waves and nothing negative occurs. And as a result of that, I think that, the gold rush in a sense begins. I think that a good example, as Jim had mentioned, is that we have a guy named David Vitter who's running for U.S. governor, and he's U.S. senator. And basically, he probably, I think, is mastering, or his campaign is mastering online everything. And although he himself, certainly, I don't think he's got the knowledge, experience, and so on, but still, he's taken the risk, and it's working for him. I think it's working tremendously for him. One of the things he did that I had not seen anybody do was to I guess a couple of months ago, took a video of himself during the middle of a campaign. And I think he was probably using iPhone or Android. And then he put that up and, edited it, put it up and sent it out by email to his 80,000, 100,000 followers or so. So the message that he wanted to get across had to be done very quickly. It wasn't something that he would be able to spend a lot of time planning, going to a studio, etc. It's something that, he wanted to get out there right away. And that's the real benefit of this type of technology, that you are able to get information out right away. It may not be, as you know, Scott, since you've dealt with this for many years, it's certainly not TV quality. You and I talked about that in terms of, not being TV quality. But I think people are getting used to that. I mean, David Vitter being a really prime example of that. Of all people I would have thought would have been adverse to it, it would have been David. I even saw Governor Bobby Jindal, who's on the road in Iowa for president, and he wanted to get something out. I forget what the issue was, but it was important to him. And so he had a basically selfie video that he took, and he put it up. He put it up on Twitter and Facebook, I believe, his other social media. So people are getting used to it, more used to it. They're seeing the winners, use it. And I think that as the technology evolves, it's just a question of more people becoming acquainted, and people like you, Scott, and others, and hopefully myself and Jim, we're aware of this. We've used it. We've figured out, the conflicts, or whatever it may be. Not all the time, but hopefully many more times than not. So that's what I think in a nutshell.